cruising, that ever popular pastime of being wafted along by the waves as exotic locations glide by in the panoramic vistas offered by cinematic windows from the towering superstructure of a ship the size of a block of flats, a floating palisade of pleasure rooms, spas, bars, dinner at the captain's table, nightly cabarets, cocktails and casinos. Of berthing briefly in Barcelona, of docking in Dubrovnik, Naples or Istanbul. Forgive me these cliches, you can probably tell I've never been on a cruise, but if I were to be tempted, I would cruise a river. Immersion in an artery of landscape, culture and history. And so it was that when friends told me they were cruising one of Iberia's great rivers, the Douro in Portuguese, or the Duero, as it is when it crosses the border into Spain, I was intrigued. And one of them's with us now. Sally von Miester, welcome to the programme.
Thank you. You made it sound very glamorous, the cruising, I must say.
Well, it's not like the river cruise at all, is it? You weren't
like
in a boat the size of a floating block of flats at all, were you? Well, tell me about that. You tell me the circumstance of your cruise on the Douro, because it was a special occasion, wasn't it?
It was a special occasion, and it was somebody's 80th birthday, and the one thing we asked her, what would she like to do? And she said, I'd like to go up the Duero. So I tried to find out about it.
And so let's start with the boat. What was the boat like?
Oh, absolutely brilliant. You couldn't fault it, actually. It's quite small because it has to be the same size as the locks are. So there's hardly inches either side as it goes into these huge locks going up the Duero. So it is restricted by the width of those. Was it
a modern boat or was it?
Oh yeah, very modern.
Okay. And how many days were you on it?
We were 7 nights, sort of 8 days.
Okay. And so give us a brief rundown of the itinerary. You boarded in Porto. Did you have time to discover Porto at all?
Yes, we did, but we did that on the way back. So we got on the boat on the first night and unpacked our clothes, hung them up in the very small cupboard. But that's it. So you don't have to do anything else with your clothes except for take them out of the cupboard, and you're restricted to how many clothes you've bought, which is really quite a nice way, actually. You can't come on with loads of suitcases.
Right. Okay. So I just to go back to unpacking the clothes. This is presumably in a. I'm not imagining a dormitory, am I? You have individual.
No, you're not. You're imagining a very nice cabin, which actually I shared. On the top deck, because we wanted to be able to see everything as we glided by. Huge big window, so you see the countryside rolling by if it's moving when you're asleep or waking up. But most of the time, we set off very early morning, and you have breakfast with the countryside rolling by.
Lovely. Indeed, you can wake up. You can lie in bed with the countryside rolling by.
Can lie in bed, but you're very busy because, breakfast starts at 7 and my companion in my cabin gets up very early. So, in fact, I joined her too. So you're at the breakfast table by 7:30, having the sort of 5th cup of coffee and delicious food for breakfast. And
what was breakfast? We asked you about breakfast earlier, actually, but what was breakfast like?
Breakfast was anything from hollandaise, scrambled eggs, omelets, delicious pastries, fruit, you name it, you could have had it for breakfast.
Lovely.
And absolutely excellent. It was wonderful, actually, really wonderful. And everybody comes to breakfast going, I don't eat breakfast. Well, I can tell you, by the time they finish, they've all eaten breakfast. So very interesting.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and then what happened after breakfast?
And in fact, there's a sort of meeting upstairs in the salon, with your tour operator on the boat, who actually was absolutely charming, very well informed, Elena, and she gives you the options of what you can do today.
Mm-hmm.
And so she runs through the program and tells you when to be where, or to get to the bus at 9:30 or whatever time it is, and gives you a rundown of what you're going to see. You don't have to go. You can spend all day on the boat, actually.
Right. So you're stopping on the way up the river, and Elena's giving you the options of where you can get off.
Yes, and you have no night when you're cruising all night.
Yeah.
You are moored.
Sure.
Which is lovely.
Sure. And so tell me some of the places you got off at, because you're sailing up the river from Porto inland now through Portugal.
You're going up inland, and we're heading actually towards Salamanca.
Yes.
And which is where the end, where the Duero becomes Portuguese, and it goes from Portugal to Spain.
Mm-hmm.
So we stopped in places like Peso de Regua, where in fact the Mateo's Palace Gardens are. And that night we had the most delicious dinner in a quinta and started to taste the port, which is, I have to say, absolutely delicious.
Was that a revelation for you, the port?
Well, it was really, because I've always sort of slightly hated port, but I tell you, pink port you could certainly get into. It's an 11 o'clock drink in the morning, I'm talking about.
Oh. Really, in the morning?
You can start quite early,
Right, and you can stay. You can stay with it. It doesn't floor you.
Oh, you can definitely stay with it. No question that you can't. It sometimes doesn't mean you're very drunk. It's just very drinkable.
Is it? All right. Do you drink it cold, like rosé, or
cold? I drink it cold, and lots of it. They had it in the evenings as an aperitif before dinner,
mm-hmm.
and you had it with tonic or something. Well, I'm not into that sort of thing, so I actually preferred mine neat.
Yes, yes, but that's indigenous to that part of Portugal, yeah.
Yes, absolutely, and the sadness of it is, I don't think many, I don't know how much port they sell. I mean, I think it's a bit like sherry. I think it's slowly going down because people don't drink it unless you've tasted it properly. It's like sherry, isn't it? It's the same thing.
Yes, yeah, but it's also
you need to be somewhere for somebody to explain it and to try the best, or some of the best, and then you think, oh my God, I could do this. I've got some in the fridge. I tuck into it occasionally.
You brought it back.
You definitely bring it back.
Yeah,
oh, yes.
And does it, Sally? Does it taste as good off the boat as it did on the boat? Because very often you travel to these places. I remember going to Magro and bringing back pickled aubergines, which I thought were absolutely delicious there. And when I got them back home, I thought, what? No, they didn't quite taste quite the same. Does pink port retain its allure?
I think it does, definitely.
Good.
Yes,
Quality Tipple.
I know what you mean. Yeah. When you take something to somewhere and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It's trouble. You want it cold. Well, when you come by next time, you can have some.
Thanks. I'll make a point of it.
I'll introduce you to
it. Tell us about the scenery, though, or the landscapes that you sailed through.
It's beautiful, and the sadness of it was we had a week when it rained every single day, so standing on the top deck was not an option. But the windows are huge on the boat, so you can see everything either side. It's stunning. A lot of woodland comes down to the edge of the river.
Mm-hmm.
You go through sort of gorges.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how they pick the grapes, which are literally, so steep, coming down in the olden days when they didn't have anything and you just had people and I presume donkeys. I mean, my God, it was hard work.
Right. So the gorges were vine clad, and you referred to the locks. So this indicates that the Douro is quite heavily engineered. How does that how does that work?
Well, it was in 1950 when they started to build the locks. It wasn't until then until then, they had these rather beautiful boats, which were flat-bottomed, which collected the grates from upriver and brought them down. And then I think there was a lot of flooding in Porto and that area, and that's when they started to put this lock system in. And the locks are fascinating. Obviously, all the men on board were busy out there looking because they know all about all of that stuff. But, I mean, they were 35 metres deep, 36 metres deep, these locks.
Really?
Some of them, not all of them.
So you arrive, the process of negotiating a lock is what? You arrive in this basin and then you slowly rise up.
You arrive in this little basin.
Yes.
And he very slowly enters into the cabin, and the portcullis goes up.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go in, and then slowly the water fills up, and then you're 36 metres above from where you've just started from.
And you can suddenly see the view again. I mean,
and you can see the view again. And actually, we had a day when in the bottom of the 36-metre lock, out came 4 rowing boats with 4 people in each boat, sculls. I mean, it was quite an awesome sight. And God, I mean, I wouldn't want to be in there.
Sorry, what were they doing in the rowing boats at the bottom of the lock?
Well, they were coming down. I don't know where they started from. I presume they started maybe way up in Spain. They came down.
Okay.
And they were on journeys. They had a rubber boat that accompanied them, and they came out of the bottom. And there were these tiny little boats in this huge lock. It was fascinating, actually.
Sally, we know we're in a drought situation. What was the state of the river like? How was the health of the river?
Well, it was quite a low, they said, because they hadn't had any rain, except for the 2 weeks before when it has rained a huge amount. So the river was filling up. It's quite shallow. It's much shallower than you think. And you see quite a lot of huge rocks on the sides. I mean, you need to know how to navigate the river.
For sure.
You know, with a passenger ship.
Yes,
you know.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
They're not very big. I mean, they only take about 110 people with 40-something odd staff.
That's quite a lot of people on a riverboat. How were the other guests? Were they agreeable?
Oh, they were all very nice. You know, they're all quite chatty. You know, we were a group of 9, so it was sort of we were our own team. You know.
Yes. Yeah. But there was a nice vibe on board. There was.
You could have not asked for more. I have to say, the staff, the people. Just the whole thing. I'd do it again any day.
You would? Okay. Well, that was going to be my next question, and my last question is: with whom did you cruise? What was the company? Just in case any of our listeners are listening to you, thinking, "Oh, I fancy that."
Who did we? What, the travel company?
Yeah. Who was it?
It's called Riviera, and I could not fault them. I don't think any of us actually found a single thing that was negative about them. They were charming, kind. I mean, we had this great friend of ours who is not a very good walker, and in fact got to the boat and said, well, you know, I don't walk. We all thought, oh God, how does that go? But they were everywhere. When it rained, they seemed to appear with an umbrella for her. They helped her up and down the gangplanks. No, the staff, wonderful. And I tell you, the one thing everybody needs to do, if they have to take one of those walks.
Sally, what? We've lost you. Sally, we've lost you. Oh dear. We'll never know what the one thing is we have to do. We have to leave it there. Heartfelt thanks to Sally von Miester on the Riviera cruise up the Duero.